Hello Tech Pros, episode 160.
Develop a skill. Understand that, if you're looking to build an online business or so, having one particular thing that you're really good at is way better than trying to dabble in everything.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Dave Chesson. Happy Saturday, Dave.
Hey, thanks for having me here.
You bet. I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic today because we'll get into that in a minute, but I'm just super, super excited to have you on the show.
Well, likewise, it's always good to be able to sit down and chit-chat about business and where we're going and everything.
Yep, you bet. Dave Chesson, for our audience, Dave Chesson is the author behind Kindlepreneur.com, a site devoted to teaching authors advanced book sales tactics and strategies. Dave's helped authors all over the world increase their sales and does it freely. Just recently, him and his team created KDP Rocket, a software that gives authors key marketing data to ensure that their book will succeed on Amazon before they even write it. And that's awesome because just the other day, Dave, what I was kind of hinting about when we first got started, my wife was like, Chad, you've done so many episodes now and met so many different people. Like, if you wrote all the stuff down that you talk about on their show, you would have a lot of material for a book. And I'm like, maybe a self-published book deal might be in the works sometime soon. So this is perfect.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a really key question. A lot of people out there have great things that have happened in their lives. They either have a great experience or they're super knowledgeable about something. And the first question they ask is, well, what book should I write? Or, what should I get involved in? And will anybody want to read it? And so, my team and I, we were looking at this, just trying to figure out the best way to answer that question so that it's not just kind of a shoot in the dark and hope that you hit the target type thing. So, you see a need, you fill a need.
That's awesome. So I want to hear your story, Dave, about how you got started, where this came from, and what you're doing to help entrepreneurs publish their own book and make it very successful on Kindle. So, today's Entrepreneurship Saturday, and it's all about our side hustle. It's all about, the things that we do outside of our 9 to 5, or if we're like me right now, running our full-time entrepreneurship job like as a bootstrap startup and trying to take it from the ground up. So let's hear your story, Dave, of how you got started. Were you an author before you got into this business, before you got into teaching other people, or is this something new for you?
Oh, good Lord. No, there's no author bone in me. That's for sure. No, let me step back for a second. When I was in high school, I turned in a paper and I was all proud of it. I spent all this time writing this thing thinking it was like really good. And the teacher looked at me and she's like, "You're going into physics, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "That's probably a good idea." And she turned back my paper and I looked. I was like, "Ugh." I'm actually a nuclear engineer, and I'm very data driven. I love to get into the weeds and try to figure out exactly how things work. I'm a big math nerd, and then I kind of switched over. I'm in the military, and I switched over into becoming a military diplomat because, well, I really like the marketing aspect. I like negotiations and business deals and things like that. So you would think that with all that background, I wouldn't be much for a book writer or a marketer like you see on Kindlepreneur. But it's kind of weird how it all worked out. For me, my entrepreneurial story started when the military deployed me without my family. And I had 2 years alone in South Korea, where I was kind of like the liaison between the South Korean Navy and the U.S. Navy.
Okay.
I found that I had a lot of free time on my hands. So wanting to make sure that I did something worthwhile, I started looking at opportunities to make money, and I started to look at what a lot of people call the exit strategy, right? Mm-hmm. I had already decided that the Navy life was not my career path. It wasn't going to be what I was going to do, for the rest of my life, and I needed to start to think about something. You would say that a guy that's a nuclear engineer would be like set for life, but I wasn't passionate about it. I wasn't passionate about the areas I was moving in. So I took it upon myself to learn something new, and that's kind of how I got into online marketing. And I love it. I love being able to, build websites, rank things well in Google, which is known as search engine optimization, SEO. And that really started to take off. But the thing for me, though, is I was building all these websites and, I was getting all this traffic, but I was only making like a couple of $100 because, I was getting paid through Google AdSense and Amazon affiliate. And, it's just like so much work for so little return.
Right.
And that's when I found out, well, geez, I know that there are a lot of people on the internet typing in this particular term, and I'm the first piece of information they get. Why don't I just turn that into a book as well? So I started doing self-publishing, and it was just absolutely successful. It took off. And right now I'm making $9,000 a month every month, and have for a very long time. Truly passive, because I know that there's a hungry market that is searching for my book, and I have little to no competition. So with that, a person who isn't much of a writer was able to create a consistently best-selling book. And that's when the whole Kindlepreneur thing started.
Man, that's awesome. So you got into building websites and doing SEO and doing some AdWords marketing because you were just looking for an exit strategy out of the Navy. Hey, can I build some passive income or some active income? Can I get into this online marketing? Seems pretty cool. The sites that you first got into, the sites that you first started building, were they around your hobbies and your knowledge and your experience, or were there these things that you just said, hey, I think there's a big demand, like a big keyword here that's untapped, and I'm going to jump into that?
Well, the first thing was that I started off with ideas, and we're going to see a very, very awesome parallel between the story for the niche websites and my story path for, choosing the right book. You see, with the websites, I was like, okay, well, I think that this would be a good idea, say gaming, or something. And then I do SEO research, and I'd find out, okay, well, there's a lot of interest for gaming, but there's way too much competition. I'll never make it. So then I'd do more research, and I'd start to, I got into keyword research, and I'd dig down deeper, and I'd find another, long tail thing. I think like my first ever website was like freegameninjas.com. And I found like 3 keywords that would rank well. And I was like, oh, sweet. So I went for it. And the thing was that when I'd finally done the research and found out that there's a particular term, a particular long tail term that people are actively searching for and that I could rank for, then I knew what to write. I knew what website to build. So instead of just saying an all-round game site, I could be like the ninja game site, and then start ranking for ninja game type terms, talking about ninja games that are out there. And it helped me to really create a niche website that was tailored to a particular type of market. And when you do that, you really set yourself apart and create a stronghold in the market.
Okay, so Dave, I get it. I get what you're talking about here. I actually went through this process for a long term, but I never found anything that I particularly wanted to write about, right? I have, I don't know how many domain names that I've bought over the years because of research and study that if you do this long tail keyword search and you find the right keywords, and you can optimize it on Google, then you can get a lot of traffic there. And so I bought all these domain names, and then I finally quit buying domain names because it's getting too expensive, and just started an Evernote notebook called Idea Junkie, where instead of buying it for $8 a year plus all the different deviations of that word, times every year that it renews up, just like log it into a journal and come back to it later. The problem is once I actually started working on one of those things, I found that it wasn't really fun. Like I didn't like writing articles about topics, even if it was a topic that I was interested in. So how did you get through you bought the domain, you found the keyword ninja games. That sounds pretty cool. That sounds fun. But when you first started writing it, did you have fun actually putting the content together, or was that work for you?
Well, for me, the fun was the whole experimenting and testing, and again, like I said, I'm a big, numbers nerd. I'm not
Yeah.
much of a writer, and so yeah, it's not like anything truly burned a fire in my heart. But again, for me, it was if I was going to fail, I was going to fail forward. If I was going to succeed, then great, I would succeed and maybe make the next step and so forth and continue to build. To me, that's what motivates me. It's the challenge and overcoming it. And so that's where I have fun. You could, get around the whole having to write something you don't like by hiring a writer. And that's not bad. But again, yeah, for me, it is work, but it's a challenge. And I'm always up for that.
Awesome. So you built a site on Ninja Games, which just sounds amazing. And we're going to have to go look that up and link to it here in the show notes, because I love video games and I love ninjas, and video games with ninjas just sounds even better. So you started building this site, and what was the first reaction from the audience? I'm assuming you got ranked really high, like number one on Google, and all of a sudden billions of people around the globe were hitting it every day, and you're like, wow, there's a massive audience. What can I do with this?
Oh, no. This was a failure, actually. It was a glorious failure.
Perfect.
Yeah, I actually like to focus on failures, because a lot of times when you talk to people who've, risen up the ranks and, are making money online, you only hear about their successes. Let me tell you all the times I fell flat on my face. And the key was that I got up. And with Free Game Ninjas, it was the one where I had found keywords. I was all excited about it. And then I started doing the cheap, easy way of buying up links and throwing them at it. And I did. I got some initial success. Google was like, hey, let's throw this guy a bone. And next thing you know, I was having traffic. But it was like maybe 2 months later, all of a sudden, I got the Google smackdown. I was like, okay, got it. Lesson learned. Anything worth doing is worth doing right, So I went back to the drawing board. I didn't quit. I didn't get discouraged. And I said, okay, that could have gone better. So let's figure out why I failed. And I did. And then I turned it around. And, the next time I built a website, boom, it took off. And that, I say take off, we're not talking like 10,000 or 100,000 visitors per month here. We're talking, I cornered that little tiny niche of the market and was able to build off of it.
Okay, so give us an estimate. Was it like 100 users a month or 1,000 users a month? Can you kind of ballpark us of what the initial takeoff strip looked like?
Well, for niche websites, I would say 10,000 to 15,000 a month is a great job. But I've also gone as far as 6,000 per month. But again, it all depends on the market, right? I would say that if you rank number one for buyer terms, that's worth way more to me than just ranking for a how-to term. A buyer term is like best underwater earphones, or best underwater iPod player. If somebody's typing that into Amazon, they're ready to buy something. And if you rank number one, you're probably going to get the sales. So good for you.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's this concept for the audience that has no idea what we're talking about here. There's this concept of when people search on Google, they're either searching for information or they're searching for action, right? Information is just, hey, I wonder if there's anything that actually allows you to play music underwater, because I don't know, just academically that sounds interesting, versus, hey, I'm going to Mexico and I'm going scuba diving and I want to listen to my iPod while I'm scuba diving. Can you hook a brother up? Right. And I will pay dearly for that because I have to have it. Right. There's a huge difference. There's a mindset difference. And if you can figure out what those keywords are that people use when they're in the mindset of, I'm ready to hand you some money, please take my money and give me my solution, then that's way more valuable than just somebody randomly searching for terms just because, I don't know, they heard it in passing and wanted to know some more information about it.
Exactly. Yeah, the buyer mentality is always different, and the words they use inside of a search engine really tell you a lot about where they're at in their purchasing venture. So, so my background, right, and then my background was focused on building out and creating organic traffic, bringing people naturally from Google to my websites. This wasn't something that was done over like 3 or 6 months. That part took me at least 2 years to really get down and master. I mean, it's hard, but it's a great hard. And so as I had been doing that, I finally decided that I wanted to step out and create an authority website, something where I really put myself out there. You know, it was the first time I was actually going to use my own name, you know, on the material I was creating, which was kind of scary. And so that's when I created Kindlepreneur. And I chose Kindlepreneur.com because, you know, I'm an SEOer, and SEOers usually focus on Google. But the truth is Amazon is a search engine too. I mean, it uses the A9 algorithm. It's got its own cool name. And that's what helps to rank products. So when you go to Amazon and you type in, you know, when you type in a term, Amazon then goes through and they rank products based off of that term. So I was able to take a skill set that I built in one industry and apply it to a whole new industry. Or, well, it's not a new industry. Amazon's been around. But apply my background to that market. And that created a uniqueness. And that's what's really helped Kindlepreneur to propel, you know, as kind of a very different website in a well talked about market.
Okay, so what I understood from this is that you took your expertise from Google search engine optimization and you applied it to the Amazon website, the Amazon search engine, right? So when you're searching for books, when you're searching for whatever products on Amazon, there are certain keywords, there's certain metadata, there's certain things that you want in your Kindle product profile or your Amazon product profile in order to get you ranked up higher in the Amazon search engine, right? So that when the people search for the product, like your underwater iPod player, your product comes up to the top as opposed to somebody else's.
Exactly.
Awesome. So how's it work?
The Amazon rankings?
Sure. Just a 30-second overview for it.
All right, let me crack the knuckles here. Crack. Okay, so first off, you need to let the Amazon search engine know that your product should show up for that term, okay? You can do that by having that particular word inside the title, the subtitle, the product description or book description. And also, when you go to upload your book or your product onto Amazon, it'll actually ask you for keywords that you want to associate to your product. So that part right there lets Amazon know that, okay, this should probably show up somewhere in the results. That could be, you know, on page 1 or it could be on page 27. But the way that you make it go higher in the ranks and show up on the first page and show up number 1 on the first page at the top is that you need to create... you need to prove to Amazon that you'll make them more money. All right. That's kind of like the mantra for this part. You see, Amazon wants to put the product that will make them the most money at number 1 and the product that will make them the second most money at number 2. So the way that you make Amazon think this way is that either A, people type in that term into Amazon, they find your book or product and they click on it and buy it. You know, or people have been buying it and leaving really good reviews, loving the product, okay, instead of destroying it with only 1 stars instead of 4, or 5 stars, excuse me. Or, you know, also having lots of people come to that product and click on it a lot, whether or not they're coming from a website, whether or not, you know, it was just talked about in the New York Times and there's a link pointing to it. These kind of things tell Amazon, hey, this product is pretty good. It's probably pretty cool. It'll probably make us money. And so they'll start to raise it up in the rankings.
Gotcha. So we want to drive traffic to it. We want to make sure that people will actually buy it, that it's a good product. And we want to encourage people to leave great reviews so that there's just kind of this organic trust factor involved with the product. Like, yeah, people are buying it, they're liking it, they're loving it. It's not just some cheap knockoff thing that's a scam, right? This is a good quality product, and a combination of these 3 things are going to make your Amazon search engine rankings just go up and up and up.
Absolutely, exactly.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure it's a lot more difficult to do in practice than it sounds like, because it sounds like, oh, it's just 3 easy steps. That sounds like even I could do that.
It's actually not that difficult. No, the thing is that just a lot of people don't think of Amazon like a search engine, you know. And, you know, just to kind of tie all that we've talked about, I mean, truly I built a skill, you know, I practiced, I learned something, and then I applied it to a new market. And that part right there, I think, is really important for entrepreneurs. You know, we don't have to all be the same cookie cutter this. You can always find ways to transfer your skills, your expertise, the things that you've had in life to something brand new. And there's just so many opportunities for you to do this.
Yeah, I think the troubling point with a lot of people, the sticking point for me that I've struggled with for a long time before launching Hello Tech Pros is, I have my experience and I have my skill sets. And when you're working for somebody else for all your life, man, I was doing that for 20 years, just working for somebody else, think on my feet and be creative, but trying to meet their goals and do their thing. When you have that mindset kind of ingrained in you, it's really hard for a lot of folks. It was really hard for me to think about, okay, now how can I take my experience and my skill set in one market and switch it around and use those same skill sets and experience to do something completely different that's outside of like a 9-to-5 day job.
Yeah, that's a challenge for a lot of people. And, I say for anybody out there listening, it can be done. You just need to have discipline and you need to sit down and just make it happen. And once you do, you'd be surprised the results you get.
Awesome. Well, Dave, in just a moment, I want to ask you about what we can do, specifically if we're on the edge of, we want to take this experience and we want to turn it into a book form, right? We want to publish on Kindle, get it out there on Amazon, make tons of money off of it, have this passive income stream, and what your tips are for us to first identify what probably the best topic is for us, and then how to actually submit it to Kindle and walk us through that process. But first, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Hello Tech Pros. Want to be a guest on the show? Chad Bostic here, and I'm helping professionals who work with technology build a personal brand and get connected to an audience of thousands of technologists, entrepreneurs, business leaders, and investors. Download my cheat sheet of interview questions and apply to be a guest today by texting Hello Podcast to 44222 or visit hellotechpros.com/guest. Once again, text Hello Podcast with no space in the middle to 44222 or visit hellotechpros.com/guest. Are you new to podcasting? Are you looking for a fast, high-quality, yet budget-friendly podcast production team? Let TransSource Media take care of you. With a team of professional audio and video editors, writers, and graphic artists, they can help you build your podcast from planning, post-production, and platform submission. Using only cutting-edge software and studio equipment, they're here to make each and every show sound at its best. To get a free quote, please visit www.transsourcemedia.com or send them an email at marketing@transsourcemedia.com or call them at 209-505-5693. TransSource Media, transforming businesses through the power of multimedia. Okay, we're back with Dave Chesson. Dave is the author behind Kindlepreneur.com, a site devoted to teaching authors and advanced book sales tactics and strategies. We've been talking to Dave about his startup experience and how he used his experience and expertise from a completely different market of just trying to learn Google search engine optimization and how to rank web pages higher and higher. He applied that same skill set in Amazon and figured out how you could rank your Amazon products higher and higher and therefore get more sales. And so now he's teaching authors how we can take our books, take our ideas, put them in a book format, publish them on Kindle, and then outsell the competition by mastering Kindle, right? So Dave, where do we start? I mean, for me, when I think about this, it's like, okay, I have a lot of content and I have a lot of ideas and experience, and we just hinted on this right before the break, but how do I turn that into a book? Like, what's the first step in writing a Kindle book?
Well, the first thing I like to do is I like to do the research and just kind of find out whether or not my book idea is one that would potentially be successful. And you don't have to purchase a tool to be able to do that. You can just go to Amazon.com, type in the idea like you would think somebody would type in if they were searching for it, and click, and then look at the books that show up. Out of those books, what I like to do is I like to see if they're actually selling, if they're actually making any money whatsoever, right? So I'll click on the first 5, and if you scroll down on that page, you'll see this number. It's called the Amazon Bestseller Rank, ABSR. This is a number from 1 to like 4.7 million. And number 1 means it is the number 1 best-selling book in all of Amazon. and 4.7 million is the worst selling book in all of Amazon. And so you look at that number. Now, for most people, they wouldn't know what that means. But on kindlepreneur.com, we have a free calculator where you put that Amazon number in there, and it will tell you how many books are being sold per day because of that number. So what you can do is you can quickly go, pull these numbers, put it in the calculator, and find out if these books are even selling. And if they're not, then that's a clear indication that right now, nobody really cares. Like, nobody's going to Amazon and typing in that term and buying those books. It doesn't mean that you can't write the book. What it does mean, though, is that Amazon's not going to be a great source of selling your book for you, okay? You're going to have to go and find the market and then bring them to Amazon to buy your book. So I think that one step right there will save so many authors out there headaches. I can only imagine like the difficulty of pouring your heart and soul into a book, investing all your time, your energy, and your money, getting it on Amazon, and then finding out, no, nobody's buying it. It's got a rank of 4.7 million. So just validating your idea is a key part. And then when you finally find an idea that seems like it's got a lot of potential, that people are actively looking for that idea, that people are going to Amazon, typing it in, searching, and buying books on it, that's when it's time to start writing. And I mean, you just need to write. Again, I'm not a great writer. I'm not very passionate about writing, but I did find a passion. And for me, I love doing how-tos. I love getting into the numbers and the details and everything. So I write that way. And when you find that thing for you, that thing that makes you in your writing, that's when you just need to start making it happen. And the first thing I did was I promised myself every morning I would write 500 words. Doesn't matter if they're good. Doesn't matter if I end up deleting them all. I'd at least get 500 words onto my Word document.
Awesome. So I love the idea of first we're going to do some analytics because I'm a data guy too, and I want to see the numbers of, that's a great tip of take a look at that Amazon bestseller rank, and then you can plug that number into your calculator over at kindlepreneur.com, and you can really determine like how many copies of this book are being sold right now. And then you can say, okay, well, is that enough to justify me writing it? Like if it's just a burning thing inside my heart and I have to get it out, then money doesn't really matter, right? But if we're trying to turn this into a passive income stream or an active income stream, if we want to, if we want people to actually read our book, besides you and me and mom, right? Then we want to have an active audience out there that's looking for that information. So I think that's a great tip. One of the things that I struggle with, and I hear a lot from other people that I talk to, other guests, and then other audience members on my Slack channel, is, I feel that a market is already overtapped. Like if I do a search for an idea and there's hundreds and hundreds of books, and maybe some of them are selling like hotcakes, like whatever the hottest thing is right now, there's a ton of books out there and everybody's talking about it. Like, how does it make sense for me to enter a market that already has a lot of material, a lot of content in that space?
Well, the first question I'd ask is, can you beat the stuff that's on the market, right? There's times where I've gone and done my research and I found that, wow, all these books are making a lot of money and there's a lot of books on it. But their cover is ugly, their title is blasé, they have a ho-hum subtitle, there's just all these things to it. And then also too, with Kindlepreneur, we focus on teaching people all these different tactics on how to sell more books. So instead of just writing a book and throwing it up on Amazon and hoping people come to it, I take an active role in finding more market and adding to it. So there are a lot of ways that you can create a competitive advantage, but that really depends on you and what you're comfortable with and your skill set. And when you combine all that together, that should give you a good indication of whether or not this is a good niche to get into, if this is a good keyword to focus on.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of folks that just suffer from that imposter syndrome. I know I have for years and years, right? I'm not a writer, like I'm not an expert. Who's going to download my stuff? Like what makes me good at any of this? Well, guess what? If somebody is needing that information, if they want to know about, I don't know, like you said, the best underwater iPad players or whatever, then they're going to be searching for that. Or if they're an author, or they want to be an author and they want to know how to rank higher on Amazon, like they're gonna find Dave, right? Even when you first got started, you didn't have a big name. Like it wasn't like you were on Oprah and everybody knew you. You're just Dave, and you put this information together and people found it because they needed it. So I think for me and for my audience and for everybody out there who's listening, if you have some expertise, you don't have to be the world's best authority in that space. You just need to be better than the person that is looking for the information, right? You just need to be their guide, right? You need to teach them what you know, even if you don't have as much experience as some of the other people writing material.
Absolutely. And sometimes, you're just kind of a glorified research assistant. I feel that way sometimes because, one thing I've learned on the internet is people may have a giant question. Here's an example. Okay. Somebody gets a DUI, right? They've never had a DUI. They have no idea what's coming at them. Now, ultimately, what they're trying to do is figure out, oh my goodness, what is going to happen to me? But they're not going to start with that. They're going to start with actually, I don't really know much about the subject, but, like court fees, what their schedule is going to be like, how to find the right lawyer, and they may start on the internet and they may start typing these individual things, but ultimately they're just going to want all the information in one nice little book for them to go through page by page so that ultimately they reach their goal of having a good understanding of everything that's coming. And that's kind of what we do. So, if it ends up being something that you're like, I'm not the professional, on this particular subject, just finding the information and compiling it and making it into something that's very readable, enjoyable, and digestible, you've got yourself a good way forward.
So, Dave, with all these tips that people are searching for, why would we, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here, but why would we write an Amazon book, a Kindle book, versus writing a blog and putting blog posts out there and counting on that advertisement money? Is there a big differentiator between the revenue or the income that you're going to get from advertisements on a blog if you have the same material in blog format where every day you wrote those 500 words and you just post them out there on a blog, versus you write those 500 words and then edit them, compile them down into a book, and then sell them on Amazon?
Well, the first website that I created that was successful, so the first one after freegameninjas.com, I was only making $25 a month in advertisement and $20 a month in Google or an Amazon associate. So that's where Amazon pays you for sending people to their website. So all that work for $65. That particular website was bringing in about 7,000 people a month. But when I wrote my own book, basically took all the information on my website and compiled it inside of a book and then put that on the website, that right now makes $1,700 every month. So
wow. So just repackaging the same content that you had on the site, but now offering it to sell it just dramatically increased your revenue.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it at first because I was like, who would pay? It's all here. And no, not the truth. Most people would just prefer to just pay to get it all right there in front of them. And so when the website was sending people to it, Amazon was like, hey, wow, this is a really good book. We should bring it up number one and all these other keywords. And then I started getting Amazon traffic as well. So it was a good 1-2 punch.
Awesome. So how many students have you coached in the last, since you started Kindlepreneur? How many books have been launched because you've been coaching your clients?
Oh, actually, I don't do coaching.
Okay.
My thing is that I just write, really long, I'm not going to lie, I go into detail, articles that teach people how to market through a particular tactic. And it's just completely free, just put it out there. I feel as though each one is a lesson, and people have really taken to it. Kindlepreneur is only 1 year old, but it has gone from 0 to 60,000 visitors a month and growing. So I would say that people are enjoying it, which is good.
That's awesome. Well, Dave, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros. Before we wrap this up, do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience? The best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, my number one word of wisdom is develop a skill. Understand that, if you're looking to build an online business or so, having one particular thing that you're really good at is way better than trying to dabble in everything. Because when you try to dabble in everything and do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you only spin your wheels and feel like you're just running in place and you never get anywhere. So focus on one thing and hit it hard and you'll find success. With me, you can always reach me at kindlepreneur.com on the contact page. Go ahead and send me an email if you have questions. I actually still to this day answer all of my emails personally. Nice. So hit me up.
Awesome. Dave, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value this story and this advice. I mean, personally, to me, I think it's going to help a lot because I'm in this phase right now where I'm kind of thinking about, okay, well, I have a lot of content. I have a lot of ideas. I've talked to a lot of guests. I have a lot of stories. I could potentially package this up and put it into a book. Now, maybe I need to go out and take your advice that you've given here and do a little market research, right? Do some research on Amazon and do some research on Amazon bestseller ranks and see if there's a market out there who's actually looking for some of the stuff that I know about, and we'll see where it goes from there. So thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely, Chad. Hey, thank you for having me here.
You bet. Tech Pros, if you are in a position where you've thought about whether it's starting a book or starting a website or starting a podcast. I know there's several people that I've talked to who are audience members who have been thinking about doing all this stuff, but there's just not enough time. There's never time in the day. Man, let's go back to a Productivity Tuesday episode. Let's go back to a Motivation Monday episode. Let's get motivated and fired up to get this thing started, and then let's be very, very productive in our time and knock it out, right? So let's prioritize it. Let's get it out there. Let's knock it out. And then it's the long-term game. It's the, can I sustain it? Like Dave was saying here, can I just write 500 words every morning before I do anything else? And then over the course of, a few weeks, a few months, or a year or so, you've definitely got a lot of material there to launch your book, to launch your podcast, to launch your website, whatever you're trying to do. Just hit it hard. Stick with it. You've been listening to Dave Chesson, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/160. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Entrepreneurship Saturday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I will not be talking about work because it's Sunday being unplugged. On Monday, we'll get motivated once again to face the week with Motivation Monday, followed by Tuesday, Productivity, Wednesday, Leadership, Thursday, Technology, Friday, People Communication, and Saturday, back to our Entrepreneurship. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.